Thank you, Sherry. I don't know where she digs this stuff up. She must really do her work. I do remember writing it at some point, but now she found it. So I want to say thank you also to the Loft. This place is amazing. I mean, the programs that they support and the Jerome Foundation for this particular program, I just don't even know how to be grateful enough for what this has been like, to find community of people who are living regular life and trying to be serious writers and hoping that those two things become the same. It's helpful to find those people. And I also want to thank my parents for always just believing in me and my wacky family and really being proud of us. We'll find out why in a minute. And I really want to thank my partner, who lives a really brave life and is a really authentic life, and takes a lot of courage for him to let me get up here and tell his story. And so what I'm working on right now as a project is, it's on transition in general. And so it talks about a bunch of different things. Pregnancy is part of it, and birth and parenting, some about illness. I mean, it's all very in progress, so those are the things. But what I'm reading right now is about transition, gender transition. And so that's the focus of this particular essay, but it's just one part of the larger project. So I don't think you need to know much. It's a small part of that section. The one thing that might be helpful to know is that sometimes people use the word, just say T for testosterone. So sometimes I say testosterone and sometimes it's just T. And that's all it is. It's not a secret code. All right, I think we're ready. Okay, transition. I will miss Anne with the well-placed E and easy shape, steep climb of A and slide into the runout of 3 short letters. The way they smooth across the page in a tiny creak of repeat N and slip into silence. Anne. It's quite ordinary, really, that taper into nothing in the beauty of the sweep. I will miss the way Anne fits with Molly and Ellis. I'm Molly, and this is my partner, Anne, and my kid, Ellis. Anne doesn't say her name unless she has to, but I say it like a mantra sometimes, a reminder of where my feet stand, Molly, Anne, and Ellis. A reminder of where her toes are headed. She doesn't even know her own name yet. I will miss the voice of a decade of whispers, of vocal cords still short and lithe, the voice that hides behind compression shirts and silence and my willingness to speak, the voice that adjusts down, wishing for thicker chords to push sound out at a depth her small voice can only now imagine. Anne and I have been discussing transition for years, her genderqueer childhood, boy clothes and bullying, harassment and fear, bras, binding, and decades of depression. 40 years she's been dreaming this, creeping infinitesimally closer to himself. Finally, Anne is shedding the she and the trappings of that pronoun and walking away from her name and toward the open empty of trans. Whatever that shift will mean for her, for me, for our family, she to he and maybe T. Anne wants big biceps and broad shoulders, hips shaved straight, wants a deep voice and a new name that fits how she feels, wants confidence and safety. She wants height she cannot have. I'll be the short guy, Anne says, a half smile, deepening her dimple. It'll give me away. We're flipping through pants hangers at the men's section at Savers on Lake Street because Anne needs dress pants for a work conference. Lots of old man khakis with 34-inch inseam, but she's 5'5" and will walk on those hems. Anne fiddles with her hair, cut boy short and back and rumpled on top, her blue eyes scanning for a hopeful hanger. Let's cruise over and check out the boys section, I say. Turns out, one of the best places for Anne to buy clothes is Children's Place. But it's hard to stand with authority and present a paper at the American Association of Museums Conference on developing a standardized lexicon for culturally sensitive ethnographic collections when you're wearing the same pinstripe pants as the teenager checking badges at the door. I'm a shrimp, she whispers into my chest when we hug. Testosterone can't grow a femur, can't lengthen the tibia and fibula like a drawbridge rising. But T will rearrange Anne's face, redistribute fat, and thicken her forehead and sharpen her jawline. Her skin will toughen and body hair grow thicker and coarser. Most of the changes happen slowly. It can take years to have wisps of whiskers show up. But the voice, that plunge happens in the first few months, and once it deepens, it will never go back up. When Ellis was almost 2, Anne told me she wanted a new voice. We were laying in bed, Anne nestled in the spoon of my hips. She whispered, "When I talk, everyone knows I'm a girl. I wish I had a lower voice." I caught my breath. Oh boy. Exactly, she said. I really want it to be deeper. Ellis woke us the next day clutching a book as big as him. Want to read to me? I squeezed Anne's sleepy hand, then scooped Ellis into bed. Sitting between us in his Darth Vader t-shirt and with pink whale pants, a toilet paper roll for a bracelet, Ellis narrated a story by reading the pictures. The kid sneaks out of bed, she wants chocolate, Ellis said, pounding the pillow. Bim, bim, bim. A kitchen monster ate the cookies right up. Next page. They took an airplane to Grandma's to get more cookies, Ellis said, arms spread wide, tilting on the bedroom air currents, a smile so big his eyes disappeared in folds of joy. Listening to Ellis's tiny voice, I can't imagine that someday his voice will drop and deepen, that he'll tower over Anne and me and bristle us with facial hair when we hug. What will we do with a man-child? Anne and I say in our best Frankenstein voice. Anne looks away. I wonder if she thinks about the day her kid's voice will drop lower than her own voice ever will, testosterone or not. Sweetie, she says, I'll sound like a teenager at first, sort of squashed and crackly. And I'll be your sugar mama, I said. Or, she said, it might be smooth as butter. You never know. When a trans guy speaks, his voice often gives him away to people who know to notice. Not my mom, likely not yours. The bank teller or the barista won't hear it. But there's a certain roughness to the sounds as they elbow their way through newly thickened vocal cords that is distinctly trans. I wonder how scratchy Anne's voice will be, if it will still feel like her, if it will still sound sexy to me. But if taking testosterone means Anne will talk, if it means she'll order pizza or call the doctor, if it means she'll talk to the neighbor about the weather or the coffee guy about the weekend, if it means she'll tell Ellis stories or wake up excited to speak, it's worth it. If she's talking, she's growing, even if there's gravel in her voice. Anne tiptoes toward hope on the rise and fall of every letter leaping off her tongue, because her transition depends not on hormones, but the words she shares with the world and those she swallows again. One fall evening after Ellis had turned 2, Anne and I were on a date, the kind that starts with therapy and ends with wine, because that's the only kind we get these days. We're sitting on a restaurant patio eating curry and discussing parenting and groceries, top surgery and hormones, a new name. I want to have it figured out by my birthday, Anne says. Sounds realistic, I say, my mouth full. What does figured out mean? Done. Cured. She smiles. Gender puzzle solved. I hold up 9 fingers, September to June, a perfect gestation. We drift to Ellis stories and weekend plans, but names simmer on the table between us. Evan, Lewis, Maxwell. The thought of unwrapped syringes lay with our forks, vials like salt shakers. I pack the leftovers while Anne heads to the bathroom. She doesn't go to public restrooms alone, usually. We go together, my clearly gendered body announcing us, because most women don't like genderqueer sharing sink space and paper towels. But we know this bathroom is single stall, and no one will harass Anne. That's how she survives each day, one safe pee at a time. The tap of breeze and crisp sunset leaves, my striped scarf and still hopeful sandals, the slant of sun on my plate. Anne emerges from the patio door, and as she walks toward me, strong steps on cobblestone, I see him, really see the emerging him wearing Anne's blue gingham button-up. There he is, in her jeans and hikers, stealing her stride with each footfall. As she moves past laughing tables and tiny hanging lanterns, I can feel her gentle face slide into a strong-jawed smile. Blink. I can touch her once soft forearms through muscles and hair. Blink. I can smell his sharp sweat. My breath catches in the sweet sigh of her name, Anne, and I watch him walk toward me, still tracing the shift of those shoulders I fell in love with a decade ago. What? She whispers. I smile and take his hand and wonder at the tightness of its grip. Most trans men have disproportionately small hands to their bodies on T. They grow muscle and with hormones and workouts, but the structure of hands, the basic foundation of how palm meets fingers, stays constant. Muscle up, but they can only stay that long. I like my hands, Anne says, fingers stretched wide. She doesn't like much about her body, but she believes in her tough hands. Strong bone structure, square palms, fingers just the right density and agility to be equally skilled at labor and art. She can chop wood and lay brick with the same precision and grace that steadies her hand to examine a 1,000-year-old pot. When I watch Anne teach Ellis to trace with a crayon or hold a cricket, the quiet curve of her fingers cradling his, I hold my breath and hope that Anne's hands can carry her through transition. I hope they'll still feel like hers when they belong to him. I hope they'll still feel like mine. There are layers and layers of learning how to regender yourself. It's not just new clothes and a new name, not just taking up space and talking loudly. It's about how a guy props the door with his foot, that imperceptible difference in the kick of leg and tilt of hip. How a guy holds his toddler, no hip, arm crooked high. To teach yourself gender is to walk through the world as a writer, noticing details not meant to be noticed. Watching each shift and sway to find out how we codify and signify gender, and then try on that skin again and again, day after day after day. Last year, Anne visited a trans friend in Tucson and returned with a suitcase of thrift store clothes in a whole new style. I actually looked past her at the airport, thinking she was a teenage boy, and drove the loop again. She left for the trip in a baggy t-shirt and shorts and returned in a plaid green button-up, tucked into dark jeans and standing straighter than I'd ever seen, shoulders relaxed and hands quiet, looking at people walking by. We met eyes and I blushed. "Ooh la la," I said, slapping her butt as she loaded the suitcase. She teased my hand away. "Too many people." I pulled her in for a kiss, held her there a while, and whispered, "They're jealous." We got in the car, windows down as we merged onto the highway. Anne said, "What do you think?" "It's good," I said. "I like it." And I meant it, despite how it caves me to remember that significant shift. I thought she looked hot in her new boy clothes. I still do. "Me too," she said, leaning into the wind, eyes closed. When we met 10 years ago, Anne still wore women's clothes. She had earrings, 16 gauge stretched, but earrings just the same. She wore Hanes her way and fumbled with clips on an underwire. The accumulation of women's clothes was laid on her shoulders, and she walked slightly hunched, flashes of eye contact, a smile touched with sadness. But that's who I fell in love with, this complex and tender person bursting with compassion, shy and open, and living what felt to me a gentle ambiguity. Slowly Anne shed this life, a decade of subtle shifts and still counting days. Ears stripped naked, sideburns cut straight, stifling sports bras, and eventually compression shirts to bind her chest. When Anne started to wear the tight nylon compression shirts, we didn't talk about it. I got old ones from a trans friend and tossed them in the laundry. Anne put the clothes away and the compression shirts disappeared. When I rubbed her back, I felt the seamless slip. Still, we were silent. Anne ordered new ones, shirts so tight she got a stomach ache, shirts so tight she stood and faced the world in a whole new way, feet grounded, even if she couldn't always feel it. Now I don't know the slide of her back without the weave of a compression shirt. I don't know how it feels to wrap my arms around her nakedness and hold the softness of her belly, the boldness of her bare back. It's been 5.5 years, and I don't know if I will ever know that skin again. Anne won't pee on road trips because rest stops feel like a threat to a shy genderqueer person. She freezes around teenagers haunted by her high school bullies. She won't hold hands in public or walk past a group of men at night because no matter how much the queer community and academia discusses gender spectrum, the average American wants binary boxes on forms to be absolute reality. When a genderqueer person meets the people in the gas station bathroom, it's terrifying. "What are you?" a woman said to 10-year-old Anne. "Jesus, where's your mother?" "Prove it," said a pack of 6th graders to 2nd grader Anne. "What the hell are you doing?" says one woman after another. "You're in the wrong place." Anne lives an echo of "you're in the wrong bathroom and you're not supposed to be here," which over a lifetime sounds a lot like "you're wrong and you're not supposed to be." Shame wraps Anne, binding her breath to her ribs. There she is, standing with dripping hands as the air grows tight around her. I've witnessed women enter bathrooms, see Anne and check the door. Some come in and ignore her. Some glare. A few wait until she leaves. Some women report that there's a man in the women's restroom. I stare at the mean faces and say to Anne, "Take up as much space as you need." I imagine the day Anne changes her name, starts testosterone, begins to pass as a guy. I imagine she'll shed some shame and walk lighter, more open. Our lives will likely get easier, less scary anyway, but still, a new kind of hard, for me anyway. Sometimes on long runs by the river or in the silent moonlight of our mattress, I say to the imagined vial of testosterone and still-wrapped syringe, "I know you are, but what am I?" It's not that I worry that my identity will change once Anne transitions more physically, more publicly. I'll know my face and how my clothes fit. I'll know his eyes and how he sees the world. It's how the world will see me that makes me panic. I imagine my queer identity fading into Anne's facial hair and my ability to own my queerness drowned by her deepening voice. To out myself will be to out Anne. I don't see how I won't become invisible. I fought hard for my queer identity. Growing up in a military Catholic family, I had some serious work to do in my 20s. Nose ring, big boots, dykey glasses, buttons and bumper stickers about the binary gender system, pride parades and drag shows, too late and too raunchy, but I showed up. My body didn't necessarily read as queer, so I could choose when to come out and when to fade into the safe, straight walls. I could slip on my privilege like a cape of good intentions. Most of the time, I stood with conviction laced in my Doc Martens and tucked in my big belt and fought to be seen. Holding Anne's hand queered me. What a relief. Anne fought all her life to blend in, and I clamored to be noticed. As Anne transitions, she'll shift from being seen as a queer dyke to a straight white guy, suddenly tossed up from years of isolation to the place of privilege in our narrow mainstream world. And me, what will become of me? I'll be seen as a straight girl living in Longfellow with her husband and toddler in our 2-story house with a front porch, raspberries in the garden, and a giant maple out back. I imagine the assumptions people will make about my family and my life, about who I am and what I stand for. You can see us now, standing side by side, hand in hand, Ellis tight on my hip, Anne's feet facing forward and my toes outturned like they always are. This is not what I signed on for. Thank you.